This video explains how to use so-called pipe operator percent greater than percent in order to chain different data manipulation operations in R. Often, to get the information needed, you have to take intermediate steps. For instance, let's say we are working with a small data set of a restaurant supply orders, and we would like to compute the quantity ordered each month. To do this, you may first apply the group function to generate a new group dataset by month, and then apply the summarize function to generate and to compute the quantity ordered each month. This works fine, except that you have to take an intermediate step to create a new group dataset, orders month, for use in the next step in order to compute the final dataset, quantity month. It turns out that there is an easier way to do this if you chain these two operations together so that the intermediate new dataset, orders month, need not be created. The key to this chaining operation is the use of the so-called pipe operator, percent greater than percent. This pipe operator is made available through another R add-on package, Magrittr. To install the Magrittr package in RStudio, click Tools, Install Packages, and then type Magrittr and click Install. To use the package, load it with the library function. In addition, you will need to load dplyr package with the library function as well, because you will use many of the functions that are part of the dplyr package. Now, let's compute the quantity ordered each month using pipe operators instead of using this series of commands. To make sense of the pipe operator, you may think of it as taking whatever produced before it, let's say here whatever is produced by group by function, and then feeding it through this operator, which is percent greater than percent, and feeding it the output of this to the next step. So let's compute and call this new data set that we compute with the use of the pipe operator, quantity month pipe. We can see that the output of this operator is exactly the same as the output of these lines of code with the use of the pipe operator is the same as this data set that was produced through the series of these commands without the use of the pipe operator. Let's compare these two sets of code. So you can see that when we use pipe operator, we do not need to use the data set in the group function. So here we list the data sets that have to be used, to which the corresponding functions have to be applied. So group by function is applied to the orders data set, and summarize function is applied to the intermediate data set, orders month. However, when we use the pipe operator, we don't need to use data sets inside the parentheses for the corresponding functions, group by and summarize functions. So this simplifies the code. More generally speaking, you could chain various manipulation operations involving other functions such as arrange, filter, select, mutate, group by, summarize, and many others via the pipe operator. The possibilities here are endless. Let's say here we can create a series of data sets using a more with a pipe function, using a much more simplified lines of code. So let's say create a new data set based on orders on March 4th. We'll run this using the pipe function, then create a new data set of item and quantity only, again using the pipe function, and you see that each time we don't need to list the data set inside the parentheses for the corresponding functions. Then we can create a new data set adding two new variables and create a new variable using the code function. Again, each time we use the pipe operator. Okay, and then create new variable with corrected values. And finally, change variable names. And now we have each time here, we create new data sets, right? However, let's say you just want to apply many of these operations to the same data set. And in order to create a new updated set, let's say with many of the new variables, right? And also with correction of some of the values of the variables inside the data set, and perhaps even changing the names, variable names in that data set. Well, you can do this without creating all these new data sets, right? And just to make changes to the original data set by using the pipe operator. So here you make many of the changes, such as creating new variables or recording and creating new variables through the using the record function by assigning each variable, each value of the, let's say, variable item to one of the two groups, food or utensil, right? And in this case, you will create a new variable type. And then you may also want to replace some of the values of the existing variables, in this case, quantity variable and day variable. So, and all of this can be done as a series of steps without creating any intermediate data sets and just using the pipe function %greater than %. So let's say we create this new data set, which has a very long name, orders many operations to make changes to one data set. And we can run these lines of code. And here's this data set. So with all the new variables and the changes to the values here, instead of 1, we have 10, right? And instead of 100, we have 99. And we created also these two new variables. So this new data set is created by using the pipe operator and many of the functions and basically all these functions, all these intermediate steps change many of the operations together. And basically this original data set is transformed and this new data set is created.